Let me first say that at this time it's important we all appreciate that the larger outlook as we see the world is one of great uncertainty, a lot of unpredictability, new players, new behavior. And by the way, I'm talking about the Delhi test between India and Australia. This applies to some degree to the world scenario as well. And if we put together really the cumulative impact of 3 years of COVID, the damage that it has done to the global socio-economic fabric, the year of the Ukraine conflict, the knock-on effects, the fuel, food, fertilizer, trade disruptions, the shortages it has created, the uncertainties it has enhanced. And then take some of the perennial challenges which pre-existed. Climate. Now, climate was a growing concern. I think in the last few years, what we thought the future portended has actually happened to us. So we are witnessing climate events on an increasingly larger, more catastrophic scale. And in fact, today in any global risk assessment, I would say building in a climate calculation is very much a part of that. And there are the other concerns about terrorism, concerns about maritime security. There are also growing concerns about financial sustainability. I think there are more than 70 countries who have or are engaging the IMF in terms of stabilizing their national finances. And unlike in the near past, many of these are not low-income countries. Some of them are middle-income countries. So I think even an optimistic view of the world would be reasonably pessimistic at this point of time. My second point, flowing from that, if there is today really an urgent collective task, it is how to de-risk the global economy. And part of that is, exactly the events that I have referred to, over-dependence on manufacturing, over-dependence on energy, over-dependence on services. So how do we create more reliable and resilient supply chains? In a more digital world, how do we ensure at least the minimal trust and transparency? Because the fact is that we cannot be agnostic about data in the manner in which we were mistakenly agnostic about products. Where my data resides, who processes it, what do they do with it, how do they extrapolate it, matters deeply to me. So for us to pretend that all nations are the same, and it's none of our business what happens inside, I think that era is now behind us, and we must not just accept it, we must actually be aware of it and make plans to deal with this. And in fact, today at the production and consumption centers of the world, they are vastly different, certainly from what they were in 1945, but I would say almost every decade it's very useful to actually see a decadal chart of who's up and who's down and how the balances are shifting there. And flowing from that rebalancing today is, and I use the word present continuous here, is actually creating an emerging multipolarity. That there will still, the United States, to my mind, has been the premier power in the foreseeable future. I still see it as the premier power. And clearly the rise of China, the share of China in global economy, in global technology, in global influence, these are undeniable factors. But the fact is that let's take this decade, you're clearly going to see many more powers who will have more influence on global debates and global outcomes than they did before. And to my mind, certainly some of them would be sufficiently separated from the rest of the herd to be seen as a pole, and therefore you will have multipolarity. Since Brexit, there's obviously been a very intense global debate about globalization, and President Trump's election sort of intensified that debate, if I can put it that way. But to my mind, it's not an issue of is globalization good or bad. You can't turn it back. It's there for real. It's hardwired into our existence. The issue is really what's the right model of globalization. That is it a model which is fairer, which is fairer within societies, fairer between societies? Is it a model where the benefits exceed the vulnerabilities? Because that is today also a very important downside of globalization. So I think that's, to my mind, actually a key global debate. So one is de-risking the global economy, but the second really is the model, the preferred direction of globalization that a lot of countries want to see. Now, in a changing world, obviously there will be new conversations. And among the conversations we are seeing are those of the importance of values, of beliefs, of ideologies, not just in a very antiseptic way of interests. And there is a whole debate which flows out of that. One debate, of course, is that of democratic countries, pluralistic societies, and those who are not. But there's another debate, and it's a debate within the democratic world, which is really whose democracy, whose values, whose definition.